that's based on love, because I know she loves me and I love her.
Right.
You know, that doesn't mean we know everything, or that doesn't mean that she, you know, so I think that if you can come to the table with someone based on love and have a conversation about things that affects both of us, it's very, very important. So I think, you know, I know it's tiring,
Right.
you know, because you don't feel like you should have to do this, but you do.
And
And it's our responsibility. It's your, I think that that's the most important thing. When I wake up in the morning, I say to myself, it's my responsibility to change something.
And it's not always going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
If it is,
It's a problem.
it ain't real. You have to be uncomfortable for change to happen. And so I would challenge you with my white counterparts. I have race conversations all the time. And we talk about that, right? It's not comfortable, and I think they feel really awkward about it. But you have to address that. It just can't be not comfortable. We want to, go ahead.
Well, I have just one more question. In terms of protesting, I think that it's very important as well. But she's a college student, and a lot of my peers are college students, and we're being forced to decide on whether we want to protest and stand up for something and be arrested or get an education. So how do we combat those issues?
It is an education.
It is an education.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about in terms of if I'm arrested, I would be kicked out of school. So how do we combat those issues?
I don't know. Is that
No, it's not
Don't
true.
get kicked out of
So
school.
let's hear you with that.
So I think there are some groups that you guys, and I know Voice, you probably have this information about going about being arrested. I mean, sometimes when there's certain protests that you go to and folks will be like, are you down to get arrested? I'm always like, okay, y'all know what I need to do. I'm going to call, right?
Yeah.
But you're not going to get kicked out of school.
Well,
Unless it's something new that happened that I don't know about.
She wants to say
My
something.
issue is that I'm an education major and I want to be a teacher. Now I can't get arrested 6 times because I decided that
Can be in your
I want
record.
to be on the Tri-Borough Bridge making, fighting for basically my rights. So my issue is we're fighting in the streets and we're face to face with the police every day when we're protesting. And
Right.
It's scary because we want to make it in the society. The society isn't built for us. So that's what the issue is.
I say, be very clear who the organizers are of every protest you go to. And sometimes before arrest happens, sometimes they're planned arrest. So be very clear if there is a planned arrest going on and make sure you dip out before the arrest happens.
Right.
So I think you just have to be clear of who's the organizers of the protest, because some of these arrests happening are because they get out of hand. Be very cautious of what your surroundings are at these protests. And I've had to battle with that as well because I'm in school. So I agree with the civil disobedience and I respect my brothers who have got arrested, but I have not gotten arrested for any of these protests. And at this point, I'm not going to get arrested unless it's unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
So I'm not saying I'm not going to be out there. I'm out there, but if it happens, it happens. But if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it.
If I can jump in real quick, I was just on a similar kind of panel 2 days ago with folks from the Justice League and some other organizations have been out there, you know, organizing, including the big thing on Saturday. If y'all can write this down, Thursday, January 22nd, BK Nation, our organization, is going to bring together a lot of folks that have been doing this work, who want to do this work. This is going to be at Judson Memorial Church in Manhattan, right across from Washington Square Park, right in the heart of the village, right in the middle of NYU. Thursday, January 2nd and 22nd, 7 p.m. It's free, open to everyone, but we're going to be talking about exactly what you're talking about. You know, what are basic organizing tools? What does the organizing toolkit look like? You know, how do you participate in this stuff? You know, one of the conversations that came up the other day is like, why would we participate in something we don't even know? We don't even know who's leading this thing. You know, when I was participating in Occupy Wall Street, really real talk, you know, a lot of my white sisters were like, let's get arrested. The black and Latino folks like, I can't afford to get a record, yo. I'm in college, yo. I can't affect my financial aid. And so we got to have those kind of honest conversations. That's also a conversation about privilege, right back to privilege again. You know what I mean? And so, you know, join us. I got cards. My email is kevin@kevinpowell.net. I want to work with these two dynamic leaders and anyone that's willing to come together and let's share information and resources about how we can be involved. Because one of the things that I was hoping we talk about tonight this is beautiful, all the protests, but I feel like, you know, I don't agree with the concept of just completely decentralized, where you don't know who's leading anything. You know what I mean? I don't believe in putting people on the pedestal. We need to have some clear idea, what is the strategy? What are we doing here? You know what I mean? Because we put people at risk. I'll give you an example real quick. Last year when the Trayvon Martin murder came down, people hit us up like, let's have a rally in Union Square. We're all in Union Square. And someone said, let's march. We didn't know who was leading the march. Thousands of us marched to Times Square. We get to Times Square. Let's go to Harlem. So we went to Harlem. And between Harlem,
We just did that.
Right.
and guess what happened between Times Square and Harlem? Mad people got arrested who had no bail, that had never been arrested before, and most of them were young people. And no one was there to say to them, this is how you deal with this situation. I would never, as an organizer, put people in that space. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about what Kevin is saying. It is important to know who you're with, right? And so that means you have to do some investigation. There are some good organizers out there. I definitely encourage you guys to link up with Kevin in regards to what he's doing in January. Everybody, there's Justice League, there's Sisters Linda and Tamika, and those guys have put out like this whole script on what to do, how you should know what you should be doing. Years ago, in my early 20s, I remember having Norm Siegel as a professor who said to me, any time that you are going to protest, you need to be informed, and you need to have a conscious decision of whether or not you're going to be arrested, right? So sometimes, Kevin said this earlier, when you're out there, not everybody's supposed to be on the front line, right? We each have a role and we have to stay within our lane. If your vision is to become an educator, that is a fear. It doesn't make you weaker than the person who's standing on the front line, because sometimes you gotta have soldiers, right? That when that person on the front line has gotten arrested, that you're there to assist. So I don't want you to become discouraged, because I hear you're breaking your voice. I need you to understand that you play an important role. Don't stop that role. But you also have to think that we need you as an educator for the younger sisters and brothers and younger children that are coming out there. So yeah, you might have to fall back on that line because there's somebody else that is armed to do the arrest, right? To be able to be arrested. But don't become discouraged, sister. We still need you.
And also know if it's a real organized protest, there's usually people, you'll see them with
they're green. They're called green hats.
Yeah.
Usually.
And identify them when you get there, because they're usually ACLU and other legal groups, so that in the case it does happen, they're observing and can help you out there.
And we're going to definitely give you the contact information for Kevin and those guys on this panel, because they have a wealth of information. But do your research. Be concrete, okay? You just don't move when the wave says to move, because that wave might be taking you out of the ocean. So you've got to be really mindful of that. There's somebody back there that
Let me
has
say real quick to that. You know, I mean, you said you want to be a teacher. You're already involved with revolution. You're already involved with changing mind. I'd rather somebody who didn't make it to one protest who's involved with the ongoing base of solving problems. There's some people that made it to the protest. They went to Verrazano, they went to Brooklyn Bridge, they went to Union Square, and guess what? Another few weeks, you'll never see them again. The fact that you're involved, that says a lot. You're involved with the revolution.
Somebody else had a question back there. There was a brother back there that had a question.
Yeah, that was me.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rich. I happen to be an educator. Been teaching for like 16 years.
Okay.
And I had this issue with something that one of my old professors used to say. I went to Hunter, among a bunch of other schools, so I hear people talking about Hunter College. I had a professor, Mama Rimba, Donna Richardson. I think she has a book. It's called Shift the Paradigm. I think what the problem is that we don't shift the paradigm. What we're doing is we're asking our oppressor to stop oppressing us. How do we get white people to understand what it is to be black and what we go through? I don't think that's really our issue. I think what our issue is, it really breaks down to this. We don't have a community. We talk about the word community. I hear it all over the place, but we're not in a community. Communities are tight-knit. We know each other. Communities vote together. Communities run businesses in their community. They recycle money. We don't do any of that. We're a tree without roots. So we're unlike other groups in America. So when you look at the problem of the schools, you say we need to educate ourselves. Then you complain about the schools. I'm a school teacher, and I do my best to educate my people. I teach in my community. I've always taught. I've taught across the street from my house. You know, but I understand what the power of community is, because the first school I taught at was in Brownsville. And it was actually John M. Coleman, a junior high. And they're a historical school. That's the school where what happened was they were given permission to run it the way they wanted to, because there was black people living there, and they weren't doing well, and they asked the DOE, can we control our own school? And they did. And they taught Afrocentric studies and gave the kids all of that education. And then what happened was about 3 people got fired, a couple white, a couple black, because they weren't following the curriculum. And that led to the big strike that happened back in the 60s when Lindsay was the mayor. This is before I was born. That strike lasted for a long time. They took the power back from the community. And before I go further, what happened when they took over is the kids actually did better. They improved when they were being taught about their own history. And after the strike, because they said it wasn't fair to fire those white and black teachers for not following the curriculum, the power was taken back, given back to the city, and it went back to business as usual. And by the time I popped up in 99, 2000, it was back to being a SIR school and, doing poorly. We have to stop asking people to stop treating us poorly and start treating ourselves better. We need to know who represents us. How do you live in a community and not know who your local politician is? We don't even know who to vote for. We don't know who our local representatives are. We came out in masses to protest, but we had like the lowest turnout ever in votes, right? A few weeks before that. You can't ask the cops to treat you better when you have the power to vote for the people who put them in their places, who control them. We don't use that power. The people who use that power are the ones who are able to get the law to work for them.
Can I respond to you, sir?
Sure.
I like to practice what I call the 3 C's, sir. Context, compassion, and challenge. Context, compassion, and challenge. Context is, I think that there's nothing wrong with being critical of our communities if we're going to put it in proper context. You're looking at someone, me, who until I was 18 years old was that person you're describing, clueless about elected officials, clueless about what was going on in the community, clueless about everything. I didn't know anything about black history. I didn't know who Dr. King was really, Malcolm X, never heard of him, anything. And so why didn't I know these things? Because I was grossly miseducated. I didn't control the school system. I didn't control the mass media culture. I didn't control any of that stuff. Someone else controlled that stuff. And so I think we got to be very careful when we are criticizing our people. Let's, one, again, come from a place of context with love, which is the compassion. Let me understand why they are engaging in this type of behavior that you're describing. And then the third C is challenge. Then you challenge, but you're challenging with love. If you listen to Faneuil Hamer or Ella Baker or Dr. King or Malcolm X or anyone out there, or even the folks on this panel today, is coming from a position of love. We should be critical, but if you're going to be critical, you also have to come with some basic action steps. If you say, for example, we don't have a community, then my response is, well, what do you propose for us? How do we build a community? You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with criticisms if you come with action steps and solutions. Otherwise, we're saying the same stuff over and over again. And I actually respectfully disagree that we don't have a community. I think we have plenty of communities. Again, I've been all over this country many, many times. The question is, what kind of communities do we have, and how do we go from communities that were loving and self-contained to where we are now? If there's not going to be a critique of what disintegration did to our communities, we shouldn't have a conversation about where's our communities at. We're not going to have a conversation about what heroin and crack cocaine and influx of guns did to our communities. We can't have a conversation about community in the 21st century. We're not going to talk about what HIV/AIDS has done to our communities. All these different things that have destroyed our communities from every single angle, plus the fact that we've been taught to hate ourselves. I mean, it's like Malcolm X said in his autobiography. It's like you put people in a jungle political environment and you wonder why they are behaving in a certain kind of way. They've been taught to destroy themselves. And so, for me, it's very easy to criticize black people in our community, or Latino people, black and brown people, but it takes a lot more courage to criticize white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism. You know what I mean? That's the critique that I looked at. Like, are you criticizing the system that created the behavior that you're talking about? And not just for black and brown people, but when you see white brothers engaging in mass shootings around this country, they've been taught that violence is the only solution for their conflicts. And so there's a system in place. And if we're going to skip over, and just what I said, if we're talking about symptoms, well, it's easy to, it's like when I hear people blame rap for everything. Hip hop is responsible for this. This is the problem. If they just pull their pants up, all these tattoos, their earrings, I'm like, you know what, homie? Guess what? These dudes don't control this music industry. 3 record labels control all the music on the planet. They control what gets put out, what doesn't get put out. There's a reason why an Eminem can rap about anything he wants. There's a reason why Macklemore can rap about anything he wants. But a black rapper is told, here's what you can rap about. You know what I mean? That's the context. And so I'm saying to you, sir, with all due respect, I agree with you, but let's not get caught up in the Bill Cosby syndrome, you know, or the Negro leadership syndrome of blaming the people for their condition without criticizing the system that created the condition in the first place.
I'm not blaming it. I'm not blaming us.
You didn't have a single critique of the system.
Because we already did that. I didn't want to echo what was already said.
You didn't have a single solution. You didn't have a single solution on what we can do either, sir.
Did you ask for one?
I just did. I'm waiting.
Well,
All right,
that's
so
the thing. As we talk about solutions, we're talking solutions all around, right? So we want to make sure we get an opportunity to talk about some of the things that will work and won't work. So if we do have a solution, let's get one, and we got to move on the mic to someone else. Come ahead, brother. Let's talk about community. Go ahead.
All right, so in terms of solutions, for one, voting as a solution. But before voting intelligently, we need to educate each other on who's out there, who can we vote for, not based on who had the most commercials. That has to happen in our community. The people with the education and the knowledge need to share it with the people who don't have it by word of mouth, through the internet and all these other things they're talking about. That's not happening. We're sharing twerking videos. Let's share the information that's going to change, you know, who's in charge, so that we actually know their number and call them and say, this is what I want. I voted for you. We all voted for you. When we demand what we asked for. That's what other communities do.
We also have to stop assuming that all black people agree on all things. So when you say we all voted for someone, even if you just talk about the people who are politically engaged, and there's a lot of people in the room, we are on different camps, on political camps. So we can't assume that blacks share all the same culture. We have shared experiences, obviously, but this conversation, to have a real dialogue, we have to understand that we are marginalized even more when we assume that we all agree on the same things, we all agree on the same approaches. So in order to have a real dialogue, voting yes is, I think, essential to a part of the solution. But when you say educate on, you should say educate on all the candidates, because my issue may be gun violence, but someone else's issue may be economic. So candidates are different, and it's not only about these elected officials, it's about what we do every day on the streets ourselves before we even get to the voting.
We also got to be careful saying this is what other communities do. No, I've worked in black communities, white communities, all kinds of communities all over the country. Guess what? Most people in America don't vote. It ain't just black folks. Most people in America just don't vote. And so I also think it's a form of self-hatred when we act like black folks are just worse than everybody else, and we say it in our statement, well, black folks do this, and black folks don't do that. I mean, like, man, do you know all 40 million black folks in America? I don't. You know what I'm saying? So I think we got to even think about, if we're serious about helping our communities, part of that challenge is rethinking the language that we even use to describe our people. Why are we always coming from a deficit? This is what black folks don't do. This is what black folks ain't doing. I'm like, well, what do we actually do then? Because it sounds like it's just hopeless. You know what I'm saying? And I refuse to believe that. I wouldn't even be sitting here if I thought it was hopeless.
Me neither. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I work for the school, but these are my own personal opinions.
That is a disclaimer right there, brother. You got to put it out.
Say that.
That's right.
My name is Edward Evans. I am the security director of the school.
Okay.
I am a husband of 24 years. I have 4 sons. I have 4 sons who I dearly care about. They are my life. And I come from a law enforcement background also. That's how I ended up in this job. So I pretty much have been on a lot of the topics, involved in a lot of the topics that are discussed today. What I find is, what bothers me is you go to a graduation, you always see more girls than boys graduate. So this is, when you look at it now, this is the future. That bothers me. With my sons, what I tend to do is, I treat every male, I don't care if you're black or white, as if you are my son. More so if you're black, because I kind of can identify a little more with that, because I've been against the war. I've been in law enforcement where they start the day off with their, I call it a pep talk, and it kind of, depending on who you are, gets you in the mood for different issues you're going to deal with on the street. What I find is a problem is, I take my sons to the park. I find that the older black males tend to, not all, let me say that, a lot of them tend to forget things that have happened to them. For instance, when I go to the park and I'm playing with my sons, you have to be able to identify with other kids too, because if I'm out there and I see another kid looking like he's missing something, or something's empty, or he's too involved with what we're doing, I invite him over. Because I always teach my sons that you just made a new friend. I started off by saying, introduce yourself, you need to know each other's names. This builds the community that this brother was talking about, because then they know each other. And as a parent too, you have to know what your child is doing. I think the problem is when we want to be friends with our children. I tell my kids, I am your father, I am not your friend, I am someone that you can come to. We have to speak to these young people to find out what's going on in their day-to-day lives. Because just like when we were younger, sometimes you go outside, cops got you on the wall. Very few people came home and told their parents. It became the norm. You come home, you hope tomorrow it doesn't happen. We need to speak to the youth. If they look like they're stressed, if they look like they have problems, if they're not themselves, I mean, some things are just easily you're able to identify by just looking at them. And I ask them questions. I mean, you have to be careful on what you ask, but some people, some kids, and not just kids, when I say kids, I'm just talking about people younger than me, but they just need someone to care a lot of the time, or seem like they care, or listen to them. If you give them a chance to speak, just by asking them, so what is your name? Who are you? What are you interested in? And then you'll find out a lot about them. What also happens is, I do believe that people mimic what they see over and over and over again. I used to be in rap music. I was there when it first started. I'm born in the Bronx, born and raised. I was there. And I remember when it was a different element of rap. We didn't even want to curse, but we wanted to get our point across on how we felt. So when me as a parent, when I see my kids looking at something that I disapprove with, I tell them to turn it off, but I also discuss with them on what they've seen, because they have to understand it. You can't just turn them off and then expect them to know what is going on. You have to explain to them. I remember my mother, sometimes you can learn things by what someone did that they don't do, that you want to do. For instance, my mother used to come home, she gets paid. I remember I found her pay stub. She took the pay stub, it was a big secret. I disagree with that. When I get paid, I show my kids my pay stub because they think $500 is $1 million, $1 zillion. You have to explain to them how to manage their money and how you manage yours, because at the end of the day, that little $500 they see or whatever ends up a negative. So you have to show them the power they have with the money. Because as long as we are commodities, we will not get anywhere. We have to show them how to manage their money. What you need and what you want is very important. You don't need a pair of Jordans. You don't need to spend your money at this place because you feel that that is the only store on the block. Sometimes you have to be a little inconvenienced to get your point across.
So I thank you for your comments, and what I'm hearing from you is this whole thing that we've been talking about as far as we deal in the context of this conversation,
Yes.
that there needs to be education around the board. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about encouraging folks into being a whole community. We're talking about whether that comes from the law enforcement side or whether that comes from the community side. We're saying that we want our community men to pay more attention to the younger individuals that are out there. But we're also saying in the context of that is that we want them to be knowledgeable and aware of what their rights are as human beings as they come in confrontation with law enforcement. So a valid point, and I'm glad for submitting that to us, because we want to keep this in this whole context of whether we educate our children. It's the same thing we have to educate our police department, right? In the way
I
that
agree
they
with
treat
you.
in the way that they treat all citizens within our community. Brother, you had a comment to make.
I had a comment. Good evening, my name is Alan Barrett, I'm a labor organizer. I know you're here, I'm really impressed with them. I do a lot of work in Southeast Queens. The comment in the back, I mean, honestly, it's about financial literacy for our youth. If I want to pay a chase, I'm going to get a pay a chase. I like Jordans, I like deposits and stuff like that. And the real revolution is in our brain, because I'm also on the community board in my community. I sit on the Youth and Education Committee. And one of the discussions that we need to have is how can we have civic literacy involved in the curriculum, the education curriculum. Now, does anybody in here know what CDEC is? That's basically a group of parents that sit on that basically decides the curriculum of what their kids teach, but nobody shows up to the meetings though, right? That's one. And two, since there's women in the room, my thesis is on stopping frisk and interactions with women. What I've noticed is that the narrative has always been over-dominated by male being stopped. There's a sister in Seattle, right, was handcuffed in the back of a cruiser and punched in the face by a police officer, and it broke her orbital socket. The same, what's the word? The same basically injury that Darren Wilson claimed that he received. And if you really want to see what an orbital socket injury is, Google that sister. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at, because I don't want women of color to get lost in the conversation, right? Correct. Because recently we just had another no indictment that nobody's talking about with the 7-year-old girl who was sleeping on her couch. They bust into the grandmother's house and the guy pulled the trigger. And she's no more. So we need to discuss also, and I appreciate the women who are standing up for men of color, but let's not forget about you guys, because this is about you as well. You get what I'm saying?
Thank you. Thanks. Do we have any more questions? Go ahead, brother.
So good evening, all. I'm loving the conversation tonight. My name is Corey Provost. I'm a district leader in the 50th Assembly District here, which is mostly East Flatbush, Brownsville, Canarsie. So district leader is a person that sits on the executive board of the county's Democratic Party, so I play a very integral role in politics here in Brooklyn. It's been a very rewarding experience, and just really I wanted to talk on the issue of not voting and voting, and I think not voting definitely is an issue that plagues not only our community, but communities across the country, across racial, economic lines altogether. But voting is also an issue. Too many voters act like absentee landlords. And that's a reality that a lot of people don't pay attention to. I know Brother Kareem Kamara, so often we have to call out to our community stakeholders and let them know that you place us in these roles of power and of influence that we're supposed to have, but we can't do the work alone. We need people to walk side by side with us, so when we have to yell at the governor or the mayor or the police commissioner or whoever it is, that they know that people understand the people that are behind us, really ready to fight the fight that we have to fight. We can't go it alone. You see what's going on with President Obama in the White House by himself now. What's he going to do for these last 2 years? Nobody really knows, because Congress is no longer within the Democratic Party. We have all kinds of conversations about that too, though. But what I really wanted to hit home with, one more point I want to make before I ask a question, is Brother Moise, how many people are here are in college? All right, awesome. So that is beautiful. I definitely applaud you for taking that step. I remember there was a point where I didn't know that I was going to go to college before my mother had that conversation with me, go to college and move out. So I had to make a decision.
You go work or you go to school?
Yeah, that was very real at that time. But one of the things that for me, and I'm glad you brought up Bobby Smarter earlier, is you see where his life is now, trajectory where he was arrested recently. But he learned about, something like crack in the 5th or 6th grade.
Right.
If you grew up how I grew up, that's a very real reality for a lot of children out there, where they're forced into that kind of lifestyle. So you spoke about doing outreach to high school students, and I think there's definitely room for that, but there is another lane about our middle school students who get really taken out of conversation very early on. And for those that are in college, I would encourage you to push your colleges. If they don't already do this, when I was in college, we used to organize field trips for middle school students, for high school students to get a college experience. They would come and shadow college students through their classes throughout the day. I definitely encourage you to look into your school to see if they have some kind of program like that.
Awesome.
If they don't have it, make them have it. If they do have it, definitely participate in something like that. Because I think it's a worthwhile experience. But so there's so much talked about today. And I think it's very important when we leave meetings like this, have conversations like this, that we have an understanding of what can we do next immediately.
Correct.
So if you could, what would be your action steps that could allow us to step into our communities and be more effective at what we need to do to take our communities to the next level?
First, Brother Corey also was, what were you in your student government when you were at CUNY? And anyone who's at a CUNY or in any college, get involved in your student government. A lot of people think it makes no sense or it doesn't have real power, but they decide the budgets of these schools, and that itself is powerful. So I really came to this conversation to get action steps from everybody else in the audience, but I personally had to put an action step on it. I think there's not necessarily, you don't have to join with our organizations or anything, but really just take yourself. One person said he wanted to get into schools, another person said the churches. Literally just go out and on Sunday or tomorrow get involved with other people who have the same vision as you, and just keep pushing forward for it. So my action step, though, politically, would be for everybody to push the governor to sign an executive order allowing the AG at this point to, in the interim, appoint a special prosecutor for any further causes, cases like this.
I second that. Definitely. Also, just talking about, the mayor and basically, the broken window prison. I mean, the broken window policy is just like ridiculous to me. There's a lot of things that I think we can do as next steps, but I mean, I think I want to talk a little bit more about personally what we can do as young people that are here. One of the major things for me is that when I first started working in my organization, I thought gun violence just revolved around inner city communities and black people, and it was just us, and but learning a lot of different things, my mindset on a lot of things changed. It's interesting to me to hear a lot of you guys talk about rap music and Bobby Shmurda and all the other stuff. I think it's important for us to know that more than 34,000 Americans die in this country from gun violence, right? And more than half of those people are dying from suicide. And they are not African American or Latino, right? They are Caucasian men between the ages of 40 to 47, right? So it's happening, and gun violence is a universal problem. So gun violence is happening to every single person. We need to start changing the conversation around guns and gun violence in general. We need to stop just acting as if it's a black problem, because it's not. This is an American problem. America is the most industrialized country in the world, and we have the most gun violence. A lot of the other industrialized countries listen to the same music that we're listening to, but they don't have as much gun violence as we do. So we have to stop blaming it on rap music, right? Because clearly there's rap music everywhere. But there's something that's different here. And the one thing that is different here is fear. Everybody is afraid of each other here, right? And I mean, come on. So I think that that's really, really, really important to really get down to nitty-gritty of why police officers are shooting into the dark, right? Why? I mean, come on, it's all about people being afraid of each other. And I think that that's really, really important, for us to start to have conversations about. the powerlessness that a lot of people feel. We're screaming Black Lives Matter, but a lot of the people that we are working with don't necessarily believe that. So for me, it's what kind of steps that I want to take. I think I just really want to change the conversation around fear and start to address it, because the more you make people afraid, the more guns they buy, right? The more you make people afraid, the more police you see in your communities, right? The more you make people afraid, the more aggressive the policing is in your community. So I think that we need to start to talk about this whole concept of fear. And once we start addressing that, then we can, you know, move on, or not even move on, but like connect other dots as well.
Action steps, especially the provost has. I'm gonna say it again. We gotta read, we gotta study, we gotta watch, we gotta listen. We gotta read, we gotta study, we gotta watch, we gotta listen. You call yourself a leader, organizer, you're concerned about the community. You gotta know history, you gotta know current events. You gotta be consistently absorbing knowledge, you know. And if you need some suggestions, please go to bknation.org, our organization's website. We have a bunch of things on there, but one thing you can look for is something called combating racism. Combating racism, this is for everyone in this room, no matter what your background. There's books to read. If you don't like to read, there's documentaries to watch. As young people, I really recommend that you all check out a film from this summer called Freedom Summer. Freedom Summer, about young people, black and white young sisters and brothers organizing together in 1964 around voting and being educated, consistent voters. And so this is not even a new issue. Someone said voting, I agree. You got to be an educated, consistent voter. You can't just vote when you feel like it. I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. Brooklyn, New York, where we live, we all know we'd be the 4th biggest city in America. We were a separate city away from the rest of Manhattan, the rest of New York City. You spend any time in downtown Brooklyn, the court system, you see black and brown people loaded up in there. When y'all don't vote, not only you're not voting for the President of the United States or the governor, but you're also not voting for the judges who put us in jail in record numbers. Upstate, y'all know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? This is real like that. Voting, Brother Provost just said he's a district leader. How many of y'all even know what a district leader is? Be honest about it. Who knows what a district leader is? Well, I think if you are a leader, if you're intelligent, you should go to Brother Provost, and you have Assemblyman Green Camaro right there and say, well, what's a district leader? I've heard the term community board thrown out here a few times. What's a community board? Because I can tell you, and I know Brother Provost and Brother Camaro will tell you, most of the times when you go to community boards, there's people over 40, over 50, over 60 there, but you don't see the hip-hop generations, the younger people there. And so as we're talking about what's going on in our communities, we're not even participating in our community, which is to the brother's point, who said he started out working in Brownsville. We got to be involved in our communities. Join an organization. You have to be organized, but do some research on an organization. Make sure they're actually doing things that are effective in the community. Are they providing resources or services or information? I would advocate, as someone who started a lot of organizations, do not start an organization if A, you do not know how to start an organization. Because God knows everybody and their mama come up to me every day, I want to start a nonprofit. I start asking questions. They have no idea what a 501c3 is, 501c4, you know what I mean? They've not even bothered to do research. Are there organizations out there already doing the work? So if you're serious about getting involved, either study the organizations that are already there, like Voices, you know, or Shayna's organization. New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, and support something that's already there, but only join an organization that speaks to your passion. Just don't join anything. What do you do? Share knowledge, information, resources. It's tragic to me. I got on my iPhone 6, this new iPhone, I can get any information anytime, but I can't tell many people every single day ask me questions. My response always is the same. Son, just Google it. You know what I mean? But in this era, you know, we talk about Americans, there's not just people of color. We've been so dumbed down in this country that we don't even think that we have the ability to look up stuff for ourselves. That's tragic. You know what I mean? We have to be about the most important education you can get. You go to college, I went to college, that was wonderful, but self-education means that you take learning seriously every single day of your life. There's no excuse for not looking stuff up. The last few things, to me, what do we do? Action steps. You should have a working knowledge of hip hop. I grew up in this culture. You know what I'm saying? Like the brother said he should be the birthplace of hip hop, graffiti writer, beat boy when I was growing up. Valley staff from Revive magazine. 2 years from now, I'm putting out a biography of Tupac Shakur. Hip hop is in my blood. But even if you don't love hip hop, if you don't work with young people, or if you are a young person yourself and you don't have a working knowledge of the language of hip hop, you're a loss. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know who Bobby Shmurda is, we've been talking about his name the whole time. You don't make the connection between Bobby Shmurda getting shot at the Quad Studios, which is the same studio where Tupac got shot in November 1995. Yeah. You already out of the game. Y'all feel what I'm saying? You know what I mean? If you don't know how to flip Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and say, okay, everybody's talking about, sorority sisters are loving hip hop, let me put something out there about the rally at Washington Square Park, the Million March. Y'all feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the same time, never be so elitist that you think that all I can talk about is positive stuff. These people talking about Bobby Schmurder, I can't rock with it. You know what? Meet them where they are. If that's what they talking about. A lot of times my posts on Facebook and Twitter is about basketball and football because I'm like, okay, I got the attention now, and I happen to be a sports fan myself. Now let me flip it to something else. Let's talk about gun violence. And so I think, we got to use this technology and understand where people are. And I just think that, the worst thing we can do is go into a school. Last thing, I was in school at Coney Island, and this dude meant no harm, but he got up there and he gave a presentation on civil rights. It was mad boy. It was mad boy. He showed a video, and it was just black and white photos, and people were like snoring. I sat in the back with the high school. I said, you went to this? They said, no. I said, I'm not getting into it. I'm a grown dude. You know what I mean? You got to make it relevant to these times, man. Don't show no videos. Go up there and just be, I'm not ashamed of Kay that said it, but just speak from the heart and let them know that you're real. Grade school and high school, let them know that you got flaws. Be honest with them. When I go to school, I'm like, I smoked pills, I drank liquor when I was in high school, a whole 9 yards. I've been arrested, I've been kicked out of school, I've been fired from jobs. I ain't got no shame. This is who I am. So it lets them know you're a real human being. That's an action step. Just be a human being, man. And heads will check. You know what I mean?
I'm going to tap into that, and I think, and I have to share this with you guys, is that I have staff. I run a bunch of anti-violence projects across the city to help reduce gun violence. And I want to say that about 80% of my staff have done anywhere from 15 to 20 years of time in prison, some of them for some heinous crimes, whether it be murder or unfortunately for this particular project, or unfortunately some would say, is that we have no one who's committed a crime against children or sex offense, but I have a lot of men and women who've been undereducated. And one of my staff, Kevin, I had got annoyed because there was some work that came across, and I said, why don't you just Google it? And the population that we hire them because they know the streets, they've been from the streets, and they can meet you where you are. And he said to me, he said, E, I can't read. That's real talk, right? Because the assumption is that folks can Google stuff and they can pick that up. So I challenged your brother that was right across there when you talk about the ministry and church and stuff like that. When we talk about action steps, as we talk about being productive, I encourage you to take a bunch of the brothers that you have and get on that corner and meet folks where that's the general statement that we're saying, whether it's with the cops or whoever. We have to meet people where they are. Because sometimes those of us who are educated or exposed, we forget, right? And we become better than. And so now that we're making a certain amount of money, we can't eat, I was telling Shayna this, we can't eat the Chinese food out of the styrofoam box. Because, back in the days I did that. That was real, right? I ate it. It was real good, right? Now, because of, I choose to eat differently now, right? But I encourage you, and I think the action step is for us to each grab up somebody and say to them, here, let me give a little bit of knowledge, right? Share that knowledge. Back in the days, if you have a cipher, you either burn a cipher or you're having a wisdom talk in that time, right? So you ask somebody to enter the cipher just based upon the fact that you want to spit a little bit of knowledge. So I encourage you guys to do that. I encourage our black men to take other black men and to do that. I encourage our sisters to take other sisters and to have those kinds of conversations. And it's easy. It's an easy step, right? It's an easy step that you can take. Those are some concrete steps that you can actually have that conversation. And once you get that conversation going, then you start linking them to the Shaynas, you start linking them to The Voice, you start linking them to Kevin, you start linking them to Justice League. You start directing them and have them understand the knowledge that's based upon these other organizations. Additionally, Kevin said this, it's about passion. You can't do this work if you're not passionate about it, right? Many of us here, and I'm not as actively in the game as I used to be. Many of us here don't really sleep, right? Because our phones go off all hours of the night. Our phones go off all hours of the night. So you can't do this work, and I say this half-assed, because if you do it half-assed, you kill somebody.
Exactly.
It isn't a physical death, It could be a spiritual death, a
Mm.
mental death. So you got to be passionate about this work, and I see all you guys here because you're sitting here. I believe deep within your spirit, there's a spirit of a fighter and there's a spirit of an activist. There's a spirit that wants to see change. And so in order to see change, you will actively have to be that change agent. You can't talk about down the police today and then tomorrow you're on to something else. And many of us do that. We jump on the bandwagon when it's hot because the cameras are out there. And the media is saying there's a movement going on and we're all sitting up front, center, and forward. But when the real work needs to be done, you're nowhere to be found. Activism is not temporary. It is something that is continuous. And you each have a lane to be in. And so when that sister shared about her fact that she wants to be an educator, somebody else might need to be in the front. As we think about all of the things that we're doing in regards to the Eric Garners and to all of the individuals of Browns that have been gone and shut down by police officers, we have to think about changing their mindset. And how do we do that? We have to think about if our police departments are not being educated, we're talking about educating ourselves, but they need to be educated also. And so those numbers and those forces like Brooklyn Nation, BK Nation, correct? Right? And New Yorkers Against Gun Violence and Voice, those are the organizations that are moving and keeping those wheels going. And Justice League, they're saying, listen, we want you to do certain things and we're not going to stop. There are bets out there that folks are actually saying, let's see how long they're going to keep doing this. Because they know us as a people, we don't have patience. And we're not consistent. Just think about that. There are folks that are sitting behind and saying, let's see how long. Let a good snowstorm come. And all of our marching, all of our protesting is going to stop. Let the next pair of Jordans come out and we got people lying around the corner and I ain't down in the... How many people are going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to join a protest? That's what we got to challenge folks about, right? They say stop shopping on Black Friday, and we did, right? And we saw those numbers drop, right? But then on Saturday, the numbers went back up because folks just said it was just one day we had to stop shopping. We're not consistent. Okay? So those are the things when you think about it. Folks are sitting back there like the same way they thought about it. If you don't pass the 3rd grade test, y'all gonna be in prison. There's a group of individuals, whether white or black, that are sitting back and saying, let's see how long they're gonna protest. Because we know they're not gonna be in there for the long haul. And it doesn't have to be an active protest, right? It could be you teaching you teaching you bringing somebody else to protest, you supporting Kevin, you supporting Sheena, you supporting Voice. So I encourage us as we sit here today and we you know, my grandmother would say kusume, marinate what's been told to us today and what we've heard and what these brothers and sisters are doing and what our assemblymen taking a chance to just even help Voice to even get this space. We all have a responsibility. Whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. You can't expect change to come and we all sit back and enjoy it and not be able to give back.
Final question.
Yes.
This brother right here.
I just hope that I have several things to say. I'm going to try to make it very quick. And I hope that I can articulate this correctly. But regarding Bobby's murder, you know, this is like Spike would say, it's coonery buffoonery, right? I was looking at him the first time I seen it, I'm like, what the hell is this guy saying? I sat back and I was like, this guy's been saying, like, you've been selling crack since the 5th grade. That's not good. You know what I'm saying? And we all know that that's not good. But let's be realistic regarding hip hop, right? I'm not saying that's hip hop. I'm not saying that he's a lyricist. I'm not gonna say that he's a great role model, but he's articulating what he knows.
Right.
Don't blame him. for he wasn't born many years ago. He's 20. He's my age. You know what I'm saying? This is the things that he's seen. You know what I'm saying? There are good black people. There are bad black people. I would consider myself a good black person. I'm not going to say that he's a bad black person, but this is the thing that is perpetuated onto him every single day. It's conditioning. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to attack him because I was watching that like, you suck, you can't spit or whatever. But I can appreciate him because, not all of us. Let's be real. Are we all going to be here selling crack? We ain't all going to be doing that, And I think the majority of the people that listen to his music, the young people, are not selling crack. They're not going to be doing these things. Because the same way that I can appreciate it and be silly, because when I'll sing his song, as much as I oppose his message, I'm just being silly because I know I'm not going to do that. I know I'm not going to sell crack. I know I'm not going to shoot anybody, but I'm just being silly. Understand what I'm saying? But I think, to a certain extent, Bobby Shmurda can be positive. Because I'm learning from his mistakes. Because I'm learning like, okay, so this is what he's doing wrong regarding him just shooting up to the top. Because I'm not, this is not shameless promotion, but I'm also an MC and I do a lot of music and things of that nature. But I'm seeing that without knowledge, what Kevin is talking about, what everyone here is talking about, without knowledge, it's very detrimental to yourself and the people around you. He didn't have knowledge he didn't know that he was going to blow up the way he did. So if he knew that people were going to be stealing his money, that he should have, that the hip hop police is real, then he wouldn't have been articulating these things the way he's doing now. I saw a video, as I articulated before. Right now we have, and I'm going to say we because at the high school community, I'm going to still say it's my community, even though I graduated 2 years ago. But the principal, he's a white guy. I know he's not from Brownsville. He's not from Flatbush. He's not from Canarsie. He's not from where I'm from. He doesn't greet me when I'm outside. He puts his shades on when he sees me. He's not from where I'm from. And I don't want to sound like a racist, even though I don't think black people can be racist, but he is not where I'm from, and I don't appreciate him. I don't think it's very beneficial to the student body that he's a principal. Because